Today, I have the great pleasure of speaking with Professor Anna Fuchs, and Anna is the director of the UCD Humanities Institute. And today we will chat about the humanities of the future. Hi, Anna, how are you doing today?
Hello, Patricia. Thanks very much for inviting me to participate in your wonderful series, and congratulations on running it. It's really terrific.
Oh, thank you so much, Anna. So first question for you today, Anna, is where are you located and what has been keeping you going over the last few months?
Okay, I'm based in Dublin, close to the seaside, and the things that have kept me going are simple things like getting up and going for a walk every single morning along Sandymount Beach and then back to my desk. The second thing that kept me going was gardening. The third thing that kept me going was cycling. And perhaps one more thing, laughing, quite a lot of laughter.
So important, Anna. Thank you so much. So Anna, you are full professor and director of the UCD Humanities Institute. Can you please tell our audience about your role and what makes you so passionate about what you do?
Thank you. Yes, I suppose my role includes three central aspects. The first one, I suppose, would be catalyzing and supporting research in the humanities by, for example, organizing, funding and hosting conferences, workshops, and building up international partnerships. The second aspect that's really important is, of course, to increase the impact and visibility of humanities research through public engagement. For example, we think of Plotting the Future, a series that we did in collaboration with all the research institutes at UCD and which attracted quite a lot of public attention. And the third aspect is to support our resident PhDs and postdocs. We house 36 of them in their career development by providing them with an inclusive, diverse and lively research space and environment. And while I'm passionate about all these things, if I had to pick one aspect, it's the interaction with the PhDs and the postdocs from a broad spectrum of disciplines that makes me really, really happy.
That's wonderful, Anna. So Anna, moving on to your title, The Humanities of the Future, maybe you can please tell our audience more about this.
Yeah, I think that the humanities of the future will make really an indispensable contribution to the big societal challenges that we are facing, ranging from climate crisis, migration, racism, AI, democratic societies, just societies, to health and so on. And humanities disciplines will be deeply interconnected and transversal. So what do I mean by this? So, for example, researchers in music or history, modern languages or English and so on will not only collaborate with other humanities researchers, but also with empirical researchers in the social sciences and what I call hardcore scientists like yourself. And above all, I think that the humanities of the futures will be environmental, post-colonial and post-humanist. So these three aspects are actually all interlinked. For example, environmental and cultural historians are already rewriting the history of modern Europe rather than simply celebrating the progress of human civilization, which is a very established narrative. They are now critically deconstructing our history of extreme violence and warfare, our approach to energy. There's a field called energy humanities, our approach to consumption, and of course, our history of exploiting natural resources and non-human life forms, and the disastrous consequences of the pervasive anthropocentrism, which has defined the humanities, not only the humanities incidentally, for so long. So as we go forward, I think these are the central impulses that will redefine the humanities and make them absolutely quintessential for addressing the major societal challenges of today and tomorrow.
Thank you, Anna. And I am sure our audience will have a lot of questions about what you've just said there, because you've touched on a huge amount of different aspects and how important the humanities will be. Yeah, so please, audience, do remember to submit your questions by the chat function. But Anna, everything you said there just screams interdisciplinarity. So, and you, as you know, in UCD Discovery, we are incredibly passionate about interdisciplinarity. So how important will this be, I suppose, to your work?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, interdisciplinarity is absolutely essential if we want to come up with creative and fair solutions to the big societal challenges that I've already touched upon.
Yeah.
And in terms of the humanities, it means that we really will have to overcome and abandon what is generally referred to as the methodological nationalism, which has shaped the humanities since the 19th century. And this approach needs to be replaced, what I would call, and I'm quoting here Rosie Braidotti, by a more nomadic approach or a porous research landscape that engages with transnational issues that I've mentioned before, say the history of violence, colonial exploitation, the climate crisis, processes of exclusion, inclusion, and so on. And I think it's fair to say that the humanities have been actually reviewing some of their traditional assumptions and premises for quite some time. And the most innovative methodological impulses in this regard have already come from a range of fields such as cultural studies, queer and gender studies, post-colonial studies, migration studies. And these fields are all transversal, and they have already exploded traditional subject boundaries. And of course, if you look at what's happened over the recent period or so, it's clear that this kind of shift away from methodological nationalism is becoming ever more important in the wake of, say, the Black Lives Matter movement, the equality debate, and so on. And
okay.
This, for the humanities, just one more sentence, if I may, this entails, above all, reviewing national canons. And it involves a very serious discussion of what of our humanist past should be remembered and salvaged.
Wow. I am sure our audience will have a lot of questions, and actually one has already come in that's very aligned to what you were just speaking about, but it's in terms of our technological world, our increasingly technological world. So just bear with me for a minute and I'll read it. The humanities are sometimes accused of being less practical than, say, science and technology courses in terms of job prospects. How can the humanities remain relevant in an increasingly technological world?
I think they're already relevant. They have never been irrelevant. They're already relevant. So, for example, the current debate on posthumanism is about the fact that we are enmeshed with technology. So technology studies is in fact an intrinsic part of a lot of humanities research, not just within the digital humanities. So when just focusing on the posthumanist debate. So here we look at what it means when technologies are becoming part of our everyday world, from the IT technologies that we are using, to chips that are inserted into our bodies, to other technological aids that help us growing old and making our lives easier. And all these technologies come with huge promises, but sometimes this technological optimism is one-sided. So the humanities can look at how we can kind of engage with technology critically, which means that we don't deny its uses, but we also discuss its limitations. So this is something that the humanities can bring to the table.
Oh, absolutely, Anna. I couldn't agree more. And we have so many questions coming in for you. I'm going to try my best to get through them all. But this is really interesting. So by post-humanist, what aspects of humanism do you think are outdated and in need of replacement? Mm-hmm. Or do you mean the view of the world as a space intended to be exploited by humans for gain of individuals, groups, nations, or humans in general?
Yeah, okay, that's a very good question. Thank you very much. Yes, I think it's all of that. So by post-humanism, we mean a critical approach to the anthropocentric attitude to the world, to the planet as a whole. And the argument is that we need to replace this with you could call it a planetary consciousness, which looks at our entanglement with other life forms and also with the material world in a completely different way. And this means dethroning the position of anthropos, of humankind, and looking at really critically examining the disastrous legacies we have created for the next generations to come. So that's one important aspect of posthumanism, kind of undermining the over-optimistic humanism which was generated from the early modern period and drove the project of modernity right into the 21st century. And the second aspect is really engaging with artificial intelligence and robotics, and accepting and embracing the fact that we are now cyberborgs, to use an established term, in the sense that our digital devices are an intrinsic part of our identities. They form who we are. It's not just an addition that we can give up. It's part of our identity formation. So we need to understand the processes that inform this. And all of that is part of the post-humanist agenda.
You know, that's wonderful, Anna, and you've touched on some of the other questions that are here, especially in relation to artificial intelligence, because I'm not sure if you realized last week our speaker did speak on artificial intelligence and touched, so the question is, our speaker last week touched on one of the fundamental questions in philosophy: what is consciousness? And how can the humanities advance and improve machine learning? And is enough interdisciplinary collaboration going on in this space yet? So you've touched on it, but it's a bit deeper.
Yeah, that's a very, very complex question. I'm not sure that I'm the best person to go into machine learning. That's not my expertise. As regards the second part of the question, well, consciousness is actually a very, very interesting concept, a very complex and difficult concept. And in fact, there is no agreed definition of consciousness. So far, we can say that artificial intelligence does not have consciousness. But I'm not sure that we won't reach a point when this is possible. So at the moment, we can still distinguish between humans and computers or robots by assigning consciousness to the human sphere. But in future, so for example, when we begin to insert chips into our brains to, I don't know, prevent memory loss or things like that, obviously, we will be, again, this is a good example of the cyborg. It means that I'm still Anne Fuchs, but I may have a computer chip in my brain to allow me to live a happy and healthy life for a longer period. So I think this is where we need much more debate, where humanities scholars need to make an effort to engage with what's happening in this rapidly evolving field, and vice versa. I think students of computer technologies need to engage with the critical debates of what they are doing. And that's something that can come from the humanities.
That's wonderful, Anna. And actually, you've answered probably about 2 more questions in your answer just there. So a lovely comment has come in for you, and I have to say this to you. 10 minutes of listening to Professor Fuchs is proof of why our universities are just so important.
Oh, thank you so much. That really is lovely. Thank you.
It's lovely. And just, we're running out of time, but I probably have time for 1 or 2 more questions. So this is interesting. Has the framing of the humanities changed during the pandemic?
I think that's perhaps difficult to answer right now, and it's very difficult to generalize. But I think, yes, I mean, I suppose this big moment in our history, which has made us pause, of course, has invited everybody to rethink what they are doing and how they are doing it. Now, I was personally involved in a project on framing aging, a welcome trust project in collaboration with the medical humanities in TCD. And one of our interdisciplinary workshops was on COVID. And we looked at the manner in which the over 65s have been represented in public discourse. And we found that the representation of that age cohort was overwhelmingly ageist, because they were represented as one homogeneous, or lumped together, one should say, as one homogeneous vulnerable group in need of protection without any agency or differences, deeply offensive to many people over 65 who are very active and make a very, very important contribution to society. And of course, this is an example where we can show that, for example, you know, the category of vulnerability is not a medical category. It is a category that is influenced by social and cultural frames. And we need to examine these frames critically and ask ourselves, are they appropriate? Is it appropriate to talk about the people over 65 as, for example, the elderly? A highly offensive term, incidentally. So what it meant for me then is that I could see that what we do in the humanities is relevant. Even during the COVID crisis, it became more relevant because we kind of engaged with the ageism and contributed to a very ongoing and open debate. In terms of the longer term effect, I expect that we will all maintain some of the digital advantages, but we are also looking forward to the human side of our engagement and returning to real encounters with our students, postdocs and PhDs, and the real chats and the informality of all of that. So I must say, personally, I'm really looking forward to the next academic year, and I'm hopeful that we will have face-to-face interactions, because often the best and interesting discussions happen outside formal conversations.
I couldn't agree more, and what a lovely way to finish, because we are completely out of time, Anna. And sincere apologies to all of you in the audience whose questions I didn't get to, but I really want to take this opportunity to say an absolutely huge and sincere thank you to Anna for the most fascinating discussion today. Thank you so much, Anna.
Thank you very much. And thank you to the audience as well. Thank you, and have a nice summer. I hope you'll all have a nice summer. Bye-bye.
Take care, Anna, and don't forget you can sign up for our series at zoomforthought.ie, where you can check out our list of upcoming speakers, and we'll see you all very soon on Zoom for Thought. Thank you so much, Anna, again. Take care. Bye. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.